Hello and welcome to episode 13 of our SNAP series. Today we're going to be covering Unit 3 Lab 2 contact list of the BJC curriculum for APCSP. So let's begin with page 1. Now the first thing this page has you do is to open up their starter project that they provide, which I've already opened up here. And now the next thing they ask you to do is to create a variable called contact list, which you can simply do by going to the variables tab, clicking make a variable, and name it contact list. But the thing they want you to do with this variable is to make it a list, because currently it can only hold a single value and not multiple values like a list would. So we can make this variable a list by taking the set block and setting contact list to an empty list. And as you can see, it's now changed to a list variable. So now the next thing this lab has you do is to create a contact constructor. And this is basically a custom block that has to accept 3 inputs. It has to accept the contact's name, phone number, and address. And it wants to record those variables and contact list. So we could start by making a custom block, make an operator and a reporter, and let's call it contact with name for now. Just basically creating the block structure that they provide on bjc.edc.org. So we can have an input of name. We can add a title text of address, as well as an address input. And then we can add a phone title text and the phone input. So now we have the basic structure of the custom block that they want, but what do we put inside it? Well, we want all 3 of these inputs to be recorded in contact list. So we can take the set block, put it before the report, and set contact list to a list containing the name, address, and phone number. And then we can finish this custom block by having it report that list, hit apply, hit OK, and now we can test it. It was an operator. Let's say this person's name is not good at making names. ASDF. Address. Let's say it's QWERTY. And phone number 1234. Never said I was good at making these. But as we can see, it's working the way it intends. It's first recording the name, then the address, and then the phone number, and it's storing them all in contact list. So I'd say it's working fine. Okay, so now we have to write a selector block, and now what this block is basically a custom block that will only report one of these different pieces of information that we put in this contact with name, address, and phone reporter. So now we can make a block, make an operator and a reporter, and let's start with picking only the name. So name from contact. And then we can add a input, which is the list we want, so let's just do contact. But we can see here that when we run this reporter, it outputs a list, and the name is the first item of that list. So we can go to variables and take item 1 of, and if we can put this here, we can see that when we click this, it reports only the name. So we can use this by reporting item 1 of contact. Hit apply, go get the block. We can see that when we put this block inside this, it should report only ASDF, which is what we want it to do. And now we have to do the same thing basically, except now with their address and phone number. So we can make another block, reporter, address from contact, make a contact input, and we have it report this time not item 1 but item 2 of contact. Apply. There it is. And now it should report QWERTY, which it does. And now the last one, we need to make phone from contact. Contact. This time, however, we have to make it report item. Well, you can make it report item 3 or item last. Will have the same effect. Oops, contact, apply, okay. And we see it should now report 1234, which it does. A quick side note that if you want these blocks to only accept list variables, you can right click on them, edit, right click on contact, or sorry, double click on contact, and if you click this little triangle over here, you can click list, And now it's expecting this variable to be a list. Hit apply. You can see that change there. And now this will only accept the list. Now let's move right along to page 2. Now on this page we're going to be developing these add and clear buttons. So the first thing they ask you to do is to make a script which will ask the user for the contact data and then add it to the contact list. So they provide a multitude of ways to do this, but the way I'm going to do it is to just have it all in one custom block. So we can make a block, make it a list, we could have it be a command, we can make it a reporter, and let's call it ask contact. So now when this block is run, we want it to go, well, first we can go to sending tab, we want to ask for an input to the name. It's not really a question, but we'll get the job done. Now there's a few ways you can store this information, but the way I'm going to do it is to do script variables. So we can go to the variables tab and get the script variables block, put it right above the ask, and we want 3 script variables for name, address, and phone, because those are the 3 values we want to be stored. So then after the ask block, we can take this set block and set name to the answer. So now whatever the answer to this block will be, the variable name will be set to it. So now we can do this again for the other 2. We can ask for an input to the address, and then set address to the answer. Once again, that report's not supposed to be there. We can ask for an input to the phone number, and then set phone to the answer. Now you can do some abstraction on this to make it simpler, but I'm just going to leave it like this for now. And then we just have to report contact with name, and have the name be name, address, and the phone number, phone. Now if we hit apply, we can test this reporter out to see if it works. You can click on it to run, and now you can see that the add contact button is asking for an input to the name, which is kind of weird, but let's go with it. I'm just going to add the same information we had last time. Well, that would make much sense. I'll change up the information. Let's call him, I don't know, Adam. Input address, 1111, I don't know, Living Street. And put phone number, I'm just going to type 1 through 6. And now you can see the ask contact button, reporter, has reported this list, and that contact list has also changed to the information that we've input. So we have successfully developed the add button, and now we can move on to the clear button. Okay, so to start developing the clear button, you have to first go to clear button scripts. You can do this by clicking on the clear button sprite in the sprite corral, and that'll bring you over to the scripts only specific to it. So here we can make a custom block, a list command block, and we can call it clear list. And now inside this thing, the only thing we specifically need is to set contact list to an empty list. Apply and OK, and now we have our custom block. But we want this custom block to run only when the clear list button is clicked. So we can go to the control tab and get to the when I am clicked block, and we connect it to the clear list. So now when we click the clear list button, the contact list should be completely cleared. So let's test that out now. And we see that it works fine. And that seems to be it for page 2, so now we can move on to page 3. As a quick side note, going back to the add contact button, we can also have it so that the contact is added only when the add contact button is clicked by changing this reporter to a command block. So if we just make another block, call it ask contact, this time keeping it as a command instead of a reporter, and we edit and take all of this, yeah, sure, let's replace it. Take all of this, ooh, it was deleted. We can could just delete this block definition, honestly. We put this here. Apply OK. Get this as contact. And clicked. And now when we click the add contact button, it should run everything that's in the as contact block, which it seems to do so. Okay, so now we can move on to page 3. Okay, so the first part of page 3 is to do exactly what we just did with these name from contact, address from contact, and phone from contact, except with a different type of abstract data type, this time focusing on the date. So first let's make the date constructor that accepts the month, the day, and the year. So if we make a block and make an operator and a reporter, we can call it date. Okay, and now we can add 3 different things to the date. We need the month, we need the day, and we need the year. So now we can report in a list the variables. We can get a list. We can report a list of the month, the day, and the year. And that's basically it for this first custom block. You can see that when we put a day, let's use their example, July 9, 2005, it will report a list containing July, 9, and 2005, which it does. Now we can move on to making the selectors, like name from contact, address from contact, and phone from contact, except this time focusing on the date, so we have to do month from date, day from date, and year from date. So a quick way to do this is to just find one of these blocks. I'm going to use name from contact, right click on it, and we're going to duplicate block definition. We can delete this too, and then we can change name simply to month and contact to date. You can change the variable name if you really want to, but I'm just going to leave it as is for now. But basically, since the output of this reporter still has the month as the first object in the list, item 1 of that list will report the month. So if we hit apply, OK, and drag this out, we can put date in here, and if we run this, we can see that it'll report July like we want it to. Now we can take a different block, or the same one. I'm just going to use address for consistency. Duplicate block definition. Delete this too. This time changing address to day and contact to date again. And since the day is the second item of the list, item 2 will be the day. Apply, OK. And this should report 9, which it does. Now the final thing we have to do is to make a final selector for the year. I'm going to duplicate the phone definition. Just changing phone to year, contact date, and removing the 2. Apply, OK. And now this should report the year, which it does. Now the next part of this page is to integrate the date abstract data type into our contact abstract data type. So we can do this by taking our contact with name, address, and phone block, and right-click and clicking edit. Now here we can add another input, which we will call birth date. Oops. Make sure it's title text. Okay. And then we can add the date list, because it's technically going to be a list. Okay. We can add this to contact list, date list, and we can see if it works. Hit apply, OK. And now if we fill name with, let's just use our first example, ASDF, wordy, 134, 0130, 2000. I didn't put the slashes, but oh wait, I'm sorry. For the date, we have to use the date block, obviously. Let's call it, what's today? September 13th. September 13th, 2020. So happy birthday to anyone born today. Made an array. Well, this date would report a list, and then reporting a list in a list would make an array. Okay, so after messing around to try to figure out why it's doing this, the only conclusion I could come up with is that this is just how Snap works now. So let's just move on from that. The next thing we have to do is to create a birth date from contact selector, which will take the information provided for the whole contact and extract the birth date from it. So how can we do that? Well, the first step is to create a custom block. So let's go to make a block. Let's make it an operator and a reporter. And let's call it birth date from contact. Alright, now we want an input. The input, we want the contact info, which will be basically this whole block. And now we have to report. Go operators. We can take one of these blocks, and you see how in here we reported an item of that list. So we could do the same thing here. You can go to the variables tab. You can get the item, and we can report item 1, 2, 3, 4. We can type 4 of this list, or sorry, the contact info. Can apply, okay. And then if we take that block, sorry, red voice. Get that out of here. We can plug in this info, and now this should report a list containing the elements September 13th and 2020, which it does. And now the last thing we have to do on this page, aside from debugging of course, is to adapt our add contact button, which is this button here, so now that it also asks for the birth date. So now this button completely functions on this that we made earlier, which it works by running this ask contact block whenever we click this add contact sprite. So let's open up this ask contact block and we can modify it. So earlier we used this script variables to hold the information, so we could just make another script variable, this time for birth date. But this opens up some other problems. See, a birth date isn't just one thing like name, address, and phone. It's actually 3 different things: the month, the day, and the year. So we can ask for the birth month, the birthday, I guess, and then the birth year. Cool. And now we can do what we did earlier. We can go to the sensing tab, get the ask block, put it down here, ask input birth month, and then we can set the variable birth month to the answer, and then do the same thing, ask input birth day, go to the variables, set birthday to the answer, and then input birth year. We can set birth year to the answer. Okay, cool. But now we want all of this to be stored in one list. So we can make another script variable. We can call it full birthday. And then we can go to the variables tab, pick set. We can set full birthday to a list containing the elements birth month, birthday, and birth year. And then we can use that full birthday variable into the report, and now we can see if this functions as intended. So basically how this works is it asks for each individual part of the birthday, the month, day, and year, sets these to variables, and then it uses those variables to make a list of the full birthday, and then uses that as the actual data. Hit apply and OK. And now we can see if it works. We can click the add contact button, input name. Oh boy, okay. Let's use different information. So XZF ZXCV, address 1234 R Street, phone number, birth month. Okay, let's say December 2nd, 1993. As we can see, it recorded all of our information in the contact list as it was supposed to. So, go ahead and debug, and then we can move on to the next page. Okay, so before we move on, this is just a quick tangent. Up till now, in this contact with name, address, and birth date block, we've been using this set contact list to list name, phone, and then we add date list to the end of it. Now this works fine, except for the fact that we're going to be now working on the find contact block. Sorry, button. And now this button, excuse me, assumes that you have multiple contacts listed throughout your contact list. So because the way we have it set right now can only hold a single contact, we can change the set contact list to block with this add block. So we can take this list, we can add, actually no, we can't do this because then it will make one list containing all three of these. So we can add name to contact list, and then we can add address to contact list, and end it with adding date list to the list. You could also use add instead of insert, but I used insert when making this, so I'll just keep that there for now because I'm inserting it at the last. So it basically works the same way as add does. But apply it, okay. And now if we run this, it's going to add another set of information. This time, well, that's weird. It reported the date twice. Well, this is why we have to debug our mistakes. You see, I put date list here instead of phone. Make sure you always debug, or else you might end up with mistakes like this. And now you see, it adds 1234, which is the number we have set, instead of another birth date. You have to click clear list for this contact list to be cleared, and now we can move on. Actually, scratch that. Going forward, it would be a lot easier just to have all of the contact information for one contact stored in its own individual sublist. And also, I figured out what caused this mistake. Instead of, you can't start a list on its own and then add, you can't set a variable to a list and then add values that are in a list to it. You have to add each of the values individually, and then you get this strange nested lists type list. So we can take these, and instead we can add to contact list a list containing name, address, phone, and date list. Then we can report that list. Apply OK, let's see if it works. So let's clear the list first. Click this. Now with all that sorted out, we can finally move on to page 4 where they have you make this find contacts with name block. So I've already preloaded the contact list with some information. This is not real information, so please don't try anything. So when making this block, they give you some suggestions, but this is the way I decided to do it. So we have the custom block, and we have filtered string as the input. It's text input. Well, it's supposed to be. Just make it oh, it is text. Oops. Dang. Text, okay. Oops. Filtered string. Make that a text. Okay. Now to move on, what I was doing. So we have a script variable called found names, and we set it to an empty list. And then we have a for block from where I is equal to the length of the whole contact list, which in this case is 3 because there's 3 different sets of information in it. If the string of item I of the contact list If the name of contact from item I of contact list contains filtered string, it'll add that item to found names, and then it'll just report found names. So if we find contacts with name Vlad and we click on it, we should get, yes, a list with only Vlad's information, like Vlad, Gat Street, random numbers, and a birthday, which is also its own separate list. Now you can move on to the final page where they ask you to make this initials from name block using this map reporter. So if we open this up, we can see that I added a contact for DAZX just so we have a contact with more than, just the first name. And so if we asked initials from the name of contact from item 4 contact list, first it will create 2 script variables, a split name and initials. It'll set initials to blank, and then it'll set split name to a list containing a split of all the names by word in the name input. So we see we're inputting item 4 of this list and the name from that. So it's going to make a list containing QWERTY and ASCX. Then for each item of a list containing the first letter of each of those, so Q and A, it's going to set initials to join what initials already is and the output of that list, which is represented by a blank. And then it'll report initials. So if we apply OK, we click this, we should report Q and A, which it does. And now for the final part of this lab, you have to make a report all initials expression. I just did this as a command block. And now in this, it's going to be basically very similar to what we had in the previous initials from name block, except this time we're going to have to do it for each item of contact list, and have another variable called initial list, which will just be a list of all the initials. And make sure that at the end you add initials to initial list, and then report the list instead of initials. And that should basically be it. So hope this guide has helped you, and we'll see you next time.